This is part two of one lady's conversation with a romance scammer she met online in a grief group named Chris. With Chris, after I told him about how I'm working to get my classroom together for the fall school year, he said he would get back to me, and we quit talking. And actually, we didn't talk for about 2 days. And this was after he had asked for a $1,000 iTunes card because pirates had stolen his. Yes, they stole his iTunes card while he was aboard the oil rig/ship. After a couple days, he did reach out, but this time Chris was a little bit different. And this is where I think there was actually 3 different people talking to me with the Chris profile. He texted me and asked how I was doing, and he called me pretty, which he'd never done before, and he asked me what I've been up to, and I told him I was getting my classroom ready and volunteering at the school. And then I told him that I would be gone for 2 weeks, because right before school starts, I take a little mini vacation. I decided this year I'd go to the beach, and I wanted to visit the city of Savannah. I told him I was going to go to Savannah, enjoy the beach and historical city, and just take a little time for myself. It's a little something I do once a year, and it picks me up and clears my mind before another school year ahead. Well, this Chris started messaging me and asking where I'm from. What do I do for work? Why am I not working today? I found this kind of strange because the other Chris I spoke to knew exactly what I did for work and went into great detail. I decided to play along, and I told him that I was off work as being the CEO of a big business. I was taking a little breather. And I guess he didn't pay attention to my comment earlier about the classroom, and I knew by now I was talking to a scammer or several scammers. I asked Chris how his work was going, and this time he said it was going wonderful, and that he was having a great time in making successful business dealings. Well, as you recall from my story, the original Chris, the previous one from previous days, had been attacked by sea pirates on his oil rig. I asked him if everything was going better than it was the last time, and he said yes, that he was able to close a big gold buying deal. Gold? Well, I decided to not question it, and I just played along, and I said, "How wonderful for you. Where are you at now? Where are you working?" He then told me that he was suddenly in Turkey doing a big business gold buying deal of gold and gemstones with an international broker, and that he was set to buy $30 million worth of gold bars and gemstones. Well, this is quite clear a career jump from an oil rig ship engineering to the previous Chris to now a gold buyer. I figured it was scammers sharing the same account. I asked him how long he would be in Turkey, and he said for at least 2 more weeks, and then he would like to come visit me in my state. Well, I told him I'm going on vacation. Maybe he could meet me in Savannah. I went ahead and told him, sure, why not? Let's meet in Savannah. Do you want to go ahead and meet there? Chris said that he would see, as he has to finish his contract here and then fly to London before flying to my state. I told him to let me know, and I'll go ahead and make him a hotel reservation. We could get rooms across the hall from each other and meet up and go to dinner and see all the historical sites. Chris said he'd let me know, and it sounded wonderful. But he's very busy right now doing his gold buying contract. He then decided to text me a photo of a suitcase with gold bars. I went ahead and threw that photo into photo search and found the owner of it. It came back from a news article about international trade of precious metals. I asked him if he's going to fly home with all that gold on his carry-on luggage, and he said yes. I then decided to see what he would say. So I asked him how his son was doing, instead of his daughter. Remember, he had a daughter, then a son, then a daughter, and no son. And this time he replied that his son's doing just fine, and he's very proud of his boy for graduating as a pilot in the U.S. Air Force. I didn't miss a beat, and I played along with him and told him that I was very happy for him and he must be a proud father. He said yes, and that his son would be deployed to Afghanistan soon for the war. Well, everyone from the war in Afghanistan had come home. I don't know what kind of pilot he was or where he was going, but I told him, well, I wish the best for your son. I then asked him how his daughter was doing, just for fun, and he told me he didn't know what I was talking about, that he only has a son, and I must be confusing him with other men I talked to on the internet. I told him no, I thought you had a daughter as well. I must have forgot. I talked to so many of my students and their parents and people at the school, I must have confused you with a parent from one of my students. He didn't catch this. Because remember, I'm now a CEO of a big company. If I can play that game, he can play that game. Let's play the game together. He said that that's okay, and asked me if I had been on any dates with other men. I asked him why. Why would I do that? Chris then told me that he had to go and he would talk to me later. I told him okay, and I'm getting ready for my vacation and doing some shopping. Well, this actually piqued his interest, and he asked me what I was shopping for. I told him I wanted to have a new beach outfit to my trip and some new shoes to go walking on the beach. When I'm in Savannah, I want to dress to impress and dress like the best. I told him I only buy the best. He then asked me if I was going to go to Walmart. I told him, why would I? I don't shop at Walmart. I only go to Neiman Marcus, Macy's, and the upscale stores. He then told me, well, if you're going out, you need to stop at Walmart and do me a favor. I asked him, what kind of favor? What's going on? He told me that he needed a $500 Vanilla Visa Razor card. I'd never heard of these. I've heard of Vanilla Visas. They're prepaid debit type cards you can load, like a loadable credit card. But he specifically said it had to be a Vanilla Visa Razor card. He put Razor in big letters for me. I asked him why. What's going on? And he told me he had to pay the taxes on the gold to ship it out of Turkey. I told him I thought you were going to bring it on your carry-on bag. He told me no, that it had to be shipped internationally at the airport, and the airport is going to ask for a $500 prepaid vanilla gold Visa card, Razor, to secure the tax credit shipping fee. I told him no, I don't shop at Walmart. Why would I shop there? He told me, well, stop there on your way home or stop at a gas station and get me a $500 Vanilla Visa Razor card. Well, by this time I thought, okay, let's see how far we can take this. And I told him I would do that, and he needs to just contact me later tonight, maybe in the evening. And he said he would. He told me he loved me and wished me a good day and told me not to forget his Vanilla Visa Razor card. By this time, I was pretty deep into this and talking and seeing where this was going to go. I decided to go ahead and get a fake Vanilla Visa card. Well, what I actually did is I went to a local store. I talked to the clerk and I found out you can grab one of these cards. I mean, you're not supposed to take them, but the cashier told me they're worth nothing if they're not loaded with money, so go ahead and take one. They're useless otherwise. So I did just that. I grabbed a Vanilla Visa Razor card, took it home. Then later that evening, like clockwork, Chris messaged me asking if I had his Vanilla Visa Gold Razor card. I told him I did. So I figured this must be the same Chris that I talked to earlier, and he told me to go ahead and open it, snap a picture of the front and back code, and let him know. So I did. I went ahead and did just that. And I waited, got no reply. I went ahead and quit messaging and went about my evening, cooking dinner and doing what I needed to do. I didn't hear from Chris until very late that night. I received a message from Chris asking how I'm doing. Dear, is everything okay? I found this strange, and I told him I'm good, and asked how he's doing and how everything worked out for him. This was another Chris. He went back to telling me that he was unwell and asked if I was able to get the iTunes cards and that he needed them because he's still on the rig and he's lost everything to sea pirates. Now, I knew these were different people, and I told Chris, well, you told me earlier you were in Turkey buying gold. I sent you a $500 prepaid gift card. That should be enough. Chris then asked what I was talking about, and I went ahead and sent him a screenshot of the chat we had earlier showing him the gift card. He said he was very confused and didn't know what was going on, and waited about 20-25 minutes and came back to me telling me that the sea pirates must have hacked into his system and that wasn't him at all. It was the sea pirates. I shouldn't have sent him that card. Obviously, it's been used. He must have checked. When I asked him what was going on, "What do you mean, sea pirates?" he said that they must have hacked the system and were messaging. It wasn't him. He went and checked the previous chat, of course, and that the gift card information was on it, and he said the gift card had been used, and I told him, "Oh no, the pirates took the card that I texted you and used it. Damn those pirates." "What are you going to do?" Chris told me to go to the store and buy him two $500 iTunes cards so he could log into his system and fix the issue and change his password. I asked him how he's messaging me now if the system has already been hacked. How are you in it? He then told me the pirates were masquerading as him and he needed to stop them right away, and he said that he would get back into the site and make sure that the iTunes cards had enough credit on them so he could change his passwords. "Go get the gift cards," he encouraged me. Well, I told Chris, "No, it's late. I'm eating dinner and then I'm going to bed. I have a busy day tomorrow." He told me, "Well, if you're working on your way home or during a lunch break, go get me those gift cards." And he added to the conversation about an hour later and sent me a video link to a romantic song. This was crazy, and I decided to see how we can play along and play this out. The next morning, of course, he messaged me asking if I was able to get those iTunes cards, and I told him I'm at work. I can't talk right now. Let's talk later. What's funny about this whole thing is when I went to the grocery store during the daytime, and I don't know if it was fate or what, but as I was leaving the store, on the ground was an iTunes card. It was used, it was crumpled up and filthy, but it was an iTunes card, so nonetheless I picked it up and took it home. I took a photo of it and told Chris a wild story, saying, "Here's your iTunes card." I told him that I got the card, I had it at the store, and as I was walking out of the store, a gust of wind blew it out of my hands and blew it down the side of a mountain, on the edge of a cliff. I had to rappel down using a rope from my car to grab the card, and as I grabbed the card, the rope broke and I tumbled thousands of feet down the mountain. But don't worry, I held on to the card, and I made sure that I was able to get it to you. I told Chris that I had cut up my hands and face, but that the card was filthy, but still worked, and I lost a shoe. But don't worry, I got your iTunes card. He didn't say thank you or you okay or anything. He told me to snap a clearer photo of the back of the card because it was dirty. Well, I did just that. I took a photo of this filthy, dirty iTunes card that probably had been sitting in the parking lot and run over by 10 cars in the shopping center. He told me thank you and came back about 10 minutes later, telling me the card had been used. I told him, "That can't be. I just got the card at the store. And by the way, thank you for asking. I'm okay." After the card fell off the side of a cliff, and I grabbed it on the mountainside before a gust of wind took me. But I think I broke some of my fingers. And he told me I just needed to take the card back and have it checked, and that's when I paused and told him no. I think the sea pirates must have hacked your chat again. They must have stolen the gift card numbers as I gave them to you. Damn those pirates. They're fast. He said, "What's the meaning of this? Stop playing games," and told me that there are no games here, only a gift card. And he asked if I was going to go back to the store, and I told him no. It's still windy outside. I don't want to relive that moment again. Chris then told me that I needed to call the customer service line with my receipt. He then asked me to show a receipt as proof that I actually bought the card. I told him a gust of wind blew that away. It was so windy that day that I managed to just hold on to the card for us, for our future. He told me I just need to go and buy another card then. He'll figure the rest out later. I told him no, I'm already in for the day. I'm not going back out, it's windy. You need to manage this yourself. After all, you're a big CEO of a gold-buying, oil rig engineering waterfront company. He didn't message me again. In fact, he quit messaging me altogether, and about 4 days later I received another message from Chris. He asked me how I was doing. He told me I was beautiful, and then asked me what my plans are for today. I told him I'm busy. I work. He then asked if I'm single, where I'm from, asked my age, and if I'm dating anybody online, and what my online experience has been with dating men. I imagine this account was probably used by a bunch of scammers, and they just didn't keep up, or they just all kept logging in from the same account. I decided to play along and told Chris I was 47, a widow. My husband had passed away after being on a gold buying expedition in Turkey. He said he was sorry to hear that and asked if I'm looking for love. Well, by this time I was curious, and as I mentioned earlier, I fight some depression and grief, and for some reason, all this distracted me. It gave me a laugh. I started laughing and making up fake names and fake scenarios to all these different Chris's. And it kind of made me forget about my depression and grief that I was battling. In a way, these romance scammers distracted me and kept me going. Well, this Chris told me that he was in the military and that he was in the army and he was being deployed to Iraq for the war. I told him I didn't realize there was still a war going on. I thought all that had ended years ago. He told me he was a special force mission officer and that he was sent to fight the good fight. I told him that's wonderful and asked if he's married, and he said no, his wife had died in a car accident 5 years prior, leaving him to raise his little daughter, who was 10 years old. I asked his daughter's name, and he told me her name was Emily, and that she was in a boarding school in the UK. I thought, wow, 5 years old in a kindergarten boarding school. These guys aren't very creative, and when they are, it's ridiculous. I asked him when he's going to go home and where does he live. He told me he lived in Miami on the beach and he had $1 million home in Miami Beach and started sending me photos of this luxurious house. Well, I knew this had to be fake and the pictures taken from somewhere. And of course, like all the other ones, I ran the photos through search and I found they came from a millionaire heiress's home in Miami, and it was part of a lifestyle story from a magazine, and that's where all the photos came from. I found out the name of the heiress who owned the home that the photos were in. He said he was using that, and I started bringing up her name, and I started asking if he knew her. That's the same home I seen before. In fact, I went to one of her parties at one time, so that's her house. He said he didn't understand what I was talking about, and I told him, no, that can't be your home, that's the heiress's home. He told me that he had bought it from her and he'd gotten a big military contract for $30 million, and he just bought the home from this heiress before he was deployed. Wow, $30 million. You guys make a lot more money in the military nowadays. I told him my brother was in the military and he barely made enough to survive, and took him like 25 years before he reached a ranking where he could buy a nice, decent home. But he told me no, he's a special operations force manager. They make millions of dollars. In fact, right now he's on a special mission and he's going to earn $100 million after he completes this secret mission. He then started sending me websites to what city he was at, saying he's on a secret mission and not to tell anybody. I told him, well, it's not a secret mission if you've told me. I can't keep my mouth shut. I'm going to tell the whole city. He told me no, that I would be put in jail by the military if I told anybody we were talking. He then asked me if I'm looking for a serious date or someone who wants a serious lifetime partner to love and have for the rest of my life. I told him I'm looking for that. I'm serious. And he asked if he wants to be my husband. He told me yes. And he sent me a photo of an engagement ring and said, let's get married. Let's get married right now. We can do an online marriage service and it would only cost me $500 in iTunes cards. I said, if I go ahead and send a $500 iTunes card as a deposit, we can get married? He said yes. I told him no, I don't want to do that. I want an in-person ceremony in Vegas with Elvis and a bunch of dancers. He told me he didn't understand and asked if I was going to go get the $500 iTunes card. I, of course, told him, I want to marry you in person. He told me then that he will come and see me and ask for my address. I told him I would give him that later. We really need to get to know each other first, and he agreed. He then asked for my phone number and asked if we could video chat, but before that, he needs a $100 iTunes card to upload data to allow video chat per the military. I told him that's not how iTunes cards work, and he said yes it is. Then went back to my playbook. I gave him a photo of the old dirty iTunes card I had found in the parking lot of the grocery store, and I said, here, use this one. I gave this to my ex, and he didn't appreciate it. I took a photo and sent it to this Chris, and he replied right away saying the card had been used. I told him, of course it's been used. I gave it to you. He said, no, it's been used before. I told him, I don't like liars. I know you just used the card because I just gave it to you. I told him, I gave you a brand new card. Why are you lying? He then became frustrated and told me some really nasty words and some nasty language. And I won't repeat that here. He then blocked me. And that was the end of my romance with the Chris's. I don't know how many people are using that profile. It's still up to this day, or using that information, but it was quite fun, and they're quite a disorganized group, and I'd like to think maybe they all lived in one house together and were using the same account, but it did lift me out of my depression and grief. However, I want to tell this story with a warning. If you're dealing with grief and depression and you join one of these support groups online like I did, just be aware scammers are in there. And when you're at your lowest, they'll try to find you and use your emotions to manipulate you to see if maybe you'll give money or a gift card. And you really shouldn't. So just keep it as a warning. Look for red flags because sometimes when you're in a deep depression, you don't want to look at things. So please always take the time to look, think, and that is my story. Thank you for allowing me to share. I wish everyone happiness. I'd like to thank this lady for sharing her story. Sometimes you do run into these romance scammers, and you do chat with them, and you know they're scammers, but they can be a distraction from the real world, and especially when you're dealing with a lot of things like grief or personal life problems, like this lady did. She talked to these scammers and was able to identify them and have a little fun. If you'd like to share your encounter, whether you've lost money or not, you can drop me an email, scammingscammers@gmail.com. Any videos, any kind of screenshots, anything you have can help me verify your story and narrate it into a video. Until next time, take care, and as always, stay safe.